welcome to my art room. I am Beth Melanson and I teach middle school art, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Currently, because of COVID, I see my students on a block schedule, so I see them every other day. So it's been kind of complicated to get it down of who's coming today and what day is it, but it's been actually really great. I get my students for almost an hour, which is amazing, so we can get a lot of artwork done. So I'm going to give you a tour of my entire classroom and let's go from there. Here's my art room. You'll notice that all of my desks are spread apart this year. Usually I have pods, but currently with COVID we have to have them spread out, so my desks are about 5 to 6 feet apart, so my students each have an assigned stool and all the tables are numbered so they sit at the same seat every day. As soon as they walk in, I have this cute little cart, and it has the hand sanitizer, the paper towels. I go around and spray the desks with sanitizer before they come in, and then they can just wipe them off. I also have wipes around the corner if they need those. So they come in, they wipe their desks. Here is a huge storage cabinet, and the nice thing is I have plenty of space up top for many projects, especially our 3D ones. I have 2 awesome sinks that are amazing. I would not trade those for the world. I have my 3-tiered little cart, and they have little glass containers in them. These are what we use for our water cups. They are glass, but I do trust my students, and we go over, being careful with our supplies and materials. These are just yogurt containers, and I just wash them out at home, and then I bring them, and this way I have plenty of water cups for my students, because we use 2 water cups at a time when we are doing ours. So I have it all set up for my watercolors right now. We've got our watercolor colored pencils that we're using. We've got our sponges for cleaning, our dish drainers, so when we're cleaning out our palettes. As you can see, I have 2 soaking right now to make sure to get all that paint out. We've got our paint brushes, and a reminder to put the brushes side up, which they always still struggle with. I have my liquid watercolors, and then I have these shelves above which store my liquid watercolors, the standard watercolor palettes, and some glue. I have lots more paper storage. I have multiple drying racks. This is the largest one that I have, which is on wheels, which is nice because then I can get it out of my way if need be. I have paper storage, and then I have an entire wall of built-in shelves, or a counter with shelves underneath. So these 3 sections I use for my student work. So they're each labeled with which class period. So usually I assign them 2 each. So that way, this bin right here, there's a bin in each one. That is the hand back. So if I grade something and I need to hand it back, usually it's a worksheet or their grading sheet that they do, their self-assessment. Those go in the bin to remind me to hand those back so they don't get mixed in with all the projects. In these drawers, these are my tracers. It works out really well this way. Then there's tracers over here, and then I have my rulers, and then I have other odd items that are larger circles than a standard circle. I don't even know what these are called. Put in the comments down below what these are actually called. My ginormous paper cutter. This is where I put all the paper for my each grade level, so that way the paper is always available to them so people can work at their own pace, and I'm not distributing the materials. They're responsible to get those on their own. I have some storage underneath. My students all know that the newspapers are stored underneath the cutting board. As soon as I say, hey, it's under the cutting board, they know exactly where to go in the classroom. That seems to really keep things simple for them. I have storage right under here. This is my 6th grade big samples, and then I have 7th and 8th, and then here I have my 3D stuff stored so it's easily accessible if I need to show them another example. I have these trifold boards that I have separate projects on besides our assigned projects, just for fun. So if a student is like, hey, I'm done, now what do I do? I rotate these boards out about every month or 2 to kind of just let them explore another art version that maybe I wouldn't focus on, like maybe mandalas. Right now I have these feathers up. I also always have a yarn project up as well. These are just paper storage and clipboards. That's what they're called, clipboards. Here's another one of my drying racks. This one is my smaller one. I like this one a lot. We're using them currently for our watercolors. You can tell that these are sample size watercolor sheets, so they're smaller If I would put them on a standard drying rack, they would just fall through. So having a smaller one like this works out amazingly for us. Above all the shelving, you'll notice that I have multiple masterpieces up for our students to reference. I try and cover most of these, or at least talk about them slightly throughout the school year, just to kind of make sure that they are familiar. I do not test them on it. I don't think they have to memorize all these artists. I just want them to see it and be like, hey, I learned that in middle school, and then be able to know enough information to go and research from there. Over here, we've got our elements and principles on the wall and our color wheel information. That's really nice to have for reference. A lot of my students look at it often because we do complementary color things. We talk about primary and secondary, warm and cool colors, so it's nice. And then we also talk about shades and tints and hues and all that fun jazz. So that's that. You'll notice I have another large drying rack. This one's also very handy dandy for bigger projects, not for the small ones. You'll notice right here is a yarn, and you can make these cute little hats with them. So I always have that up, and the yarn is over here for the students to independently get. So that's another project that they can do when they're complete or they're waiting for something to dry. I have a bookcase here with multiple art supplies on it, so they can get scissors from the scissor tree. This is just a mug holder. And markers, I have whiteboards and markers here for doing a game. I like to play games with my students, and since of COVID, they can't work in groups, so now I just give them whiteboards, and then they have a race of who can answer the question the fastest. They have to write it down on their smartboard real quick, or their whiteboard, and then hold it up. So then they win candy, so that's always fun. I've got colored pencils, gel pens, hole punchers, and then this is glue sticks, silly scissors. We've got tape in another one. I've got smelly marker. I have another shelf over here for storage, some just cutesy things on top. Then I have origami books on top, which is also a nice early finisher idea for students. And then I have adult coloring sheets as well. And then just some more storage, some cutesy things, and then of course my file cabinet. I've got my smartboard. I do have a radio in my room, and then I have storage in here for like magnets and Sharpies and that sort of thing. I have a stool that I keep up by my smartboard. Whenever I do a lesson on the board, I have a clicker. I always call my students the clicker. And instead of me having to hover at my computer, I have the students click for me. So I just have the student either sit in that stool or stand by the whiteboard, and as soon as I'm done talking about that slide, I say, okay, click, and they click for me, so that way I can still wander around the classroom. Here is where I display all of our materials, or our samples and steps. You notice they're numbered, so that really helps my students know what step to do when, what do I do next, and I try to have samples of each step. I also have objectives up at the top so the student know what the project's called, what are we learning and why, so that always helps. I have materials up here. I keep a lot of the materials that the students need for those specific projects usually here. Here's the bin of laminated Georgia O'Keeffe flowers for our watercolor project. Here's laminated sheets of optical illusions for the 7th grade project. And here's a cube thing, a printout for their cube. So that's where they can find their worksheets. I keep plain printer paper in here. There's an eyeball painted on it by one of my 8th grade students one year, so I always call it the eyeball bucket. I keep extra pencils. These are donated by the elementary school at the end of the school year when they don't need them. They can just take them. I don't care. I have bags and bags full of pencils, so I don't mind if my students take those pencils. It's when we start using our drawing pencils that I'm like, nope, those are mine. I always keep erasers out for my students to independently take if they need them. Always keep out some square paper for those origami users. We're also using this for our 7th grade radial symmetry. Then I have extra credit form that they can fill out if they did extra credit. And here's our self-evaluation paperwork. I call it a 3-2-1 sheet, and it's worked out amazing. I keep Sharpies on the bottom for my students that we spray the whole container as soon as they're done. And moving on. I put a lot of project things on carts like this, so it keeps it all contained and I can wheel it away into my closet. This is for our sewing project that my 6th graders are currently working on. So it has all of the utensils, the Pokey tools. The needles are on a magnet, there's small papers and all their graph paper and the string and things they need. I store big projects that need graded behind my desk to protect them until I get time to grade them. Here is my desk. No, I did not get to paint this. This was done a few art teachers ago, but I certainly do adore it very, very much. Here is another cart that I keep out all the time. As you can see, it's colored pencils. I went to these easy stored long baskets so I can easily spray them with hand sanitizer as soon as students are done using them. Then it's oil pastels, once again, each basket, so each student can have their own. Chalk, I keep them in the little boxes, so that way each student has their own. Those I can't sanitize, but I can put them aside until the next day and then bring them back out. And then I have currently trying to get some thin markers in there for my students to then be able to use and then sanitize as well. Here is my board that I use for Smashbook. Smashbook is what I call our sketchbook, basically. My students always ask, why do you call it a Smashbook? I tell them because we're gonna have it ruined by the end of the school year. So I have one section for my 6th graders, one for my 7th. I have 2 for my 8th grade because sometimes I have half year 8th graders and then full year 8th graders. So that way it's nice to have both. As you'll notice in each section, there's a huge clip with a notebook. So I put all of my things in notebooks as well so that my students can tell exactly what is expected of them. If there's a worksheet that they need to glue in, I always have it clipped up so they can just pull on it and have it. This is the previous one that they might have missed. So I don't put those away right away. I leave them out for a while until I know everyone has turned them in. So that is that. If I have any extra credit, I usually put it underneath as well. Currently we've got the Inktober on there as extra credit for students that are wanting to do that. I have an art supply checkout form right here, so students, if they need to take, a lot of times it's like, can I take these Sharpies home so I can finish? Can I borrow these tracers so I can do this project? So I have them fill out that, and then when they return it, they check the box again. We're almost around the whole classroom. I have paper storage right here, big rolls of it. But I also, this is where I put no name projects. As you can tell, it says no name, no fame. So I easily can just clip things up here, and down here I need to make another one. It is simply just some ribbon that is tied on both ends, and then just with little clips. So it's very easy. Students can just take their project off, write their name on it, and turn it right back in. And we are back to the start. Thanks for watching. Hey, thanks for coming on the tour of my art room. Hopefully it helped you get a little insight into how my room functions and how my students have taken control of some of their materials and supplies and taking care of them and sanitizing them this school year. I wish you the best, and I hope you have a great end of the school year. Bye.